The Serbs say they targeted terrorists, but ethnic Albanians in the Yugoslav province of Kosovo say it was ethnic cleansing.
This is WorldView with CNN's Bernard Shaw and Judy Woodruff in Washington.
Thank you for joining us.
These stories are also ahead. An employee of Connecticut State Lottery kills 4 people, then he turns the gun on himself.
And 30 years after American troops massacred women and children in Vietnam, the U.S. Army honors the soldiers who stopped them. Throughout the Civil War in the former Yugoslavia, diplomats knew that there could be more trouble nearby. They worried about tension between Serbs and the ethnic Albanians, who make up almost 90% of the population in the Yugoslav province of Kosovo. Many of the ethnic Albanians want more autonomy. Some want independence. Well, now the tension has boiled over. At least 50 people reportedly were killed Thursday, and refugees say they fear scores more died as the fighting continued Friday. CNN's Jim Clancy reports.
Thousands of Macedonians protested against the ongoing violence in neighboring Kosovo, many of them ethnic Albanians who see the Yugoslav army's crackdown as a direct threat to them. Macedonia's president has warned the unrest in Kosovo could increase tensions in his own country. Those fears have been echoed by the U.S. and its European allies. Diplomats and analysts say the risks of the Kosovo violence spreading are all too real.
If the crisis in Kosovo spills over into Macedonia, which it well might, then Macedonia will probably collapse because there are so many different nationalities in Macedonia. And the rump of what is left of Yugoslavia will disintegrate. If it does that, it risks pulling in Bulgaria, Greece, Turkey, and Albania. Now, we haven't gone that far yet, but those are the dangers, and that's what the international community is worrying about.
In Kosovo, ethnic Albanian political leader Ibrahim Rugova called on the West to deploy peacekeepers and halt what he claimed was an ongoing massacre of innocent civilians. The Serb-led Yugoslav military insists they have evidence in the form of seized weapons to prove their operation is aimed at terrorist cells of the Kosovo Liberation Army. While civilians fled the villages targeted in the operation, the Yugoslav military has cut communications links and kept the news media away from the scene. Under increasing pressure, Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic, the contact group made up of the U.S., Russia, and West European countries, which was set up to deal with the Bosnian situation, has been called to an emergency session to consider the new crisis in Kosovo. Turkey has already pledged troops if NATO decides to intervene. Albania has requested an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, and the U.S. has canceled a number of incentives promised Belgrade.
There should be no doubt about the seriousness with which we view the situation in Kosovo. We've made clear to Mr. Milosevic that we will respond to actions by FRY forces that inflame the situation.
Russia, on the other hand, has condemned both talk of intervention and sanctions. Nationalist members of the Duma called for Russian peacekeepers to be deployed. Vladimir Zhirinovsky predicted the Russians would save the situation, the Kosovars would calm down, and the Serbs would feel no threat because, in his words, they love Russians. But clearly there are no easy answers that guarantee success. The only thing in abundance is fear the violent military crackdown will ignite yet more conflict.
The nightmare scenario is that Yugoslavia collapses and we find ourselves in an old-fashioned Balkan war sometime before the end of this year.
For its part, the Serb-led Yugoslav military is predicting it will wrap up its military strikes in Kosovo by Sunday. What has already been carried out in the name of restoring order could cost Yugoslavia. And if Belgrade's action fails to contain the violence, its neighbors may pay a price as well. Jim Clancy, CNN reporting.
In a moment, we will talk with former U.S. diplomat Richard Holbrooke about the crisis in Kosovo. Bernie?
Ukraine is canceling a $45 million deal to provide Iran with key parts for a nuclear power plant. This decision follows a visit to Kiev by United States Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. CNN World Affairs correspondent Ralph Begleiter is traveling with the secretary, and he explains why canceling this deal was so important to Washington.
U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and the Foreign Minister of Ukraine have signed agreements Washington believes could put Iran out of the nuclear power business. The agreements would block the supply of nuclear technology to Iran.
This decision took great statesmanship. By carrying it out, Ukraine will cement its place in the international coalition to halt the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction.
Ukraine's President Leonid Kuchma promised to do his best to stick to the new agreements. The United States fears Iran might learn from construction of the power plant how to use nuclear technology to make weapons. U.S. officials believe the nuclear agreements reached here in Kiev could indefinitely delay construction of the Iranian nuclear power plant because no one else in the world makes the kind of energy turbines Iran had hoped to obtain from Ukraine. But the Ukrainian president cast some doubt on that, saying the Russians could build those turbines if they want to. Before the breakup of the Soviet Union, Ukraine was a major manufacturer of Soviet nuclear missile and power equipment. Iran has been counting on obtaining some turbines for this nuclear power plant being built by Russian experts. The turbines, essential to the operation of Iran's Bushehr plant, were to come through Russia from a former Soviet manufacturer in Ukraine. Ukraine signed the deal partly because the U.S. is promising to help find investors for new industries to replace jobs that might be lost by limiting the sales of those old Soviet factories. The deal also should allow American companies to sell nuclear power fuel and technology to Ukraine to replace old, unsafe Soviet-designed facilities like the Chernobyl nuclear plant, which failed in 1986.
How are you? Good to see you. Thank you for the beautiful roses.
From Ukraine, Albright flew to Italy, where she also faces questions about policy toward Iran. Italian officials are eager to restore active trade and diplomacy with Iran. Ralph Begleiter, CNN, with the U.S. Secretary of State in Rome.
We take you back now to the crisis in the Yugoslav province of Kosovo. During the civil war in Bosnia, the chief troubleshooter for the United States was Richard Holbrooke. Holbrooke was Assistant Secretary of State for European and Canadian Affairs. He was the chief U.S. negotiator of the Dayton Accord that ended the war in Bosnia. Ambassador Holbrooke joins us now from New York. Thank you for being with us. First of all, for those people, Richard Holbrooke, who don't follow Kosovo, tell us who the people are on each side.
God, that would take the rest of your show, Judy. This is really complicated. Let me put it this way. From 1991 on, the greatest fear of all American policymakers was that Kosovo would explode. If it had exploded before Dayton, then it would have metastasized along with Bosnia into a real catastrophe which could have enveloped the whole region, spread to the neighboring countries of Albania and Macedonia, and perhaps even engaged Greece, which has very tense border relations with both of those two countries. It will not, however, affect Bosnia right now because the Dayton peace process is definitely working. War criminals are surrendering, ethnic cooperation is increasing, and so on. However, it nonetheless remains true that Kosovo has always been our dreaded flashpoint. You may recall that President Bush issued a warning on it in his last month as president, and President Clinton reaffirmed it in his first month as president. Now we appear to have reached the most dangerous moment. Why? 90% of the people in Kosovo are Albanian, but the Serbs consider it their most sacred territory because in 1389, the Serbs lost a battle there to the Turks. It may sound strange to Americans, but your international viewers understand it. Now the issue is this. The Albanian Muslims of Kosovo are being repressed by a brutal counterattack by the Serb army. Again, to your viewers, this has nothing to do with Bosnia directly, but it comes from the same legacy. The question now is, what do we do? So, well,
before I ask you that, let me just get another question in here. Is it a case of rooting out the terrorists, as the Serbs are saying, or is it ethnic cleansing, as others are saying, as the Albanians are saying?
The Kosovo Albanian Muslims have been repressed brutally by the Serbs, who are only 10% of the population, for years. there may be some terrorists among the people fighting for some degree of autonomy in Kosovo. That's not the issue. The issue is that the Serbs are using helicopters, gunships, they're killing people, and for this reason, the United States yesterday, quite correctly, started to reimpose some sanctions, or to put it another way, to take away some of the carrots they've recently been giving Milosevic and the Serbs in Belgrade, because Milosevic has been helping out in Bosnia. So Washington was helping Milosevic for the first time because he was helping us in Bosnia. Now, as of yesterday, those carrots are taken away. So it's a very complicated equation.
So what is to prevent this from becoming another Bosnia that drags on for years and costs thousands and thousands of lives?
I talked to Secretary Albright and her party and to the acting Secretary of State today about this, and what I would like to say very clearly is that they have learned the lesson of 1991-92. In that case, the previous administration left Yugoslavia alone while the Europeans fiddled around and nothing happened. This time, Madeleine Albright is flying to London Monday to meet with the British, French, German, Russian, and Italian foreign ministers and others to deal with it. The U.S. government is assembling a very strong package of actions which it will try to push through with our allies and friends. The Russians have already objected, but that's traditional. The Russians will always object to anything which hurts their fellow Slav Serbs. The real point is that we are not going to sit back passively. I believe it's clear that the lessons of the early 90s, when neglect and ambivalence at the beginning led to a horrendous tragedy, have been absorbed.
Will this require military intervention from the outside in any way? Or is it just too early to know something like that?
Only the president can ever make a decision like that, Judy, but the president has shown in the past that he's ready to take decisive action to maintain stability in this terribly dangerous part of the world.
What about by the Europeans?
I would say, number one, we don't have to discuss that issue yet. Number two, the president and his European allies will address that if necessary, but I think it's a little early to worry about that one.
You do think, it sounds as if you're saying you do think that this crisis can be headed off by diplomacy, at least at this point.
Well, we have to try, but I want to make a point again about the recent past. The only way we finally ended the war in Bosnia was when we were ready to confront and people ready to confront the need to use force. And I think the president showed in Bosnia 2 years ago and in Iraq a week ago that he is ready to use that if necessary. And I do not think the Serbs should go around thinking this is 1991-92 all over again when the U.S. said we don't have a dog in that hunt. We have 8,000 troops in Bosnia, 500 in Macedonia, and we care about stability in that area.
All right. Former U.S. Ambassador, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State, Richard Holbrooke, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Judy.
Bernie.
To Iraq now, where an American inspector whom Baghdad once branded a spy was allowed to look for weapons at several sensitive sites. CNN's Peter Hume reports from Baghdad.
It was a controversial Scott Ritter's first day back on the job. Ritter, in his familiar jeans, T-shirt and baseball cap, and leading UNSCOM inspection team 227, spent most of the day in the field. A UN Special Commission spokesman told CNN that Ritter had led visits to 3 so-called sensitive sites, and that he had been, quote, personally satisfied at the outcome. Sensitive sites include Iraqi military and intelligence installations. The Iraqi news agency said a total of 12 sites had been visited by 5 UNSCOM inspection teams. And Iraqi television's English language news bulletin indicated everything had gone smoothly.
And UNSCOM's monitoring groups continued their normal activities today without any problems, with a total cooperation from the Iraqi side.
A far cry from just a few weeks ago when Ritter was the subject of vilification and accused of being a spy by Baghdad. Ritter's confrontations with Iraqi officials as he tried to access presidential sites sparked a crisis which almost led to U.S. military attacks against Iraq. Those sites will now be visited under the terms of an agreement hammered out by UN Secretary General Kofi Annan here last month. Whether Scott Ritter will be part of those inspection teams is unclear. UN officials say his current rotation is expected to last about 1 week. Peter Hume, CNN, Baghdad.
Still ahead on WorldView, barons of U.S. business pay a call on Cuba to pave the way for profits down the road.
Also ahead, how a street demonstration has become a flashpoint for tensions between Russia and a former Soviet republic.
The new age of small business has arrived. Opportunity is everywhere, and American Express gives you the power to seize it with the Corporate Optima Platinum Card. A corporate platinum card that lets you pay over time, and it's yours free. Use it to extend payment with a low introductory APR of only 8.9%.
It's easy to apply.
The Corporate Optima Platinum Card makes it easier to manage your cash flow while providing your business with a substantial credit line of up to $50,000. You'll receive complete monthly expense reports and enjoy savings at FedEx and other businesses, all with no annual fee.
Call now and we'll take your application right over the phone.
It's your business, so put the experience of American Express Small Business Services to work for you. Call 1-800-835-AMEX today and apply for the Corporate Optima Platinum Card. And let American Express give your business the power to do more.
As you prepare to pull the trigger on a trade, you are absolutely alone. You have surveyed the landscape, you are confident in your decision, and you are quietly ready to proceed. Nothing, not even lingering doubt, can distract you now. SureTrade, a comprehensive internet broker for independent investors.
You see coffee. At Sprint, we see data. Data from the field that works to project the future and allows access to information that helps people work together to achieve results on a global scale. A rich, robust blend of data that business relies on every day. Because business runs on data, and data runs on Sprint.
When you walk through the maze, there is no escape. From Catherine Coulter, #1 best-selling author of The Cove, a twisting story of suspense and romance. Catherine Coulter's The Maze. Get trapped in it.
It's always been my way or no way, right? So when I go away, I stay at Super 8. I want it comfortable. Am I right? I want my VIP discount and friendly people. But not too friendly. Life's great at Super 8.
Saturday on CNN's Evans and Novak, the Senate Majority Leader, Trent Lott, talks about the UN Iraq deal and an escalating tax cut fight with the White House. Join us Saturday, 5:30 Eastern on CNN.
Now to Indonesia, where plans are being laid to grant sweeping emergency powers to President Suharto to deal with the country's economic crisis. Rising food prices and unemployment have become a source of growing public anger. Friday, students continued their daily anti-government protests in defiance of a ban on street demonstrations. Next week, a special legislature is expected to grant longtime President Suharto a 7th 5-year term in office.
Now to South America. Colombia's army is sending reinforcements to a southern jungle following its worst defeat in more than 30 years of civil war. Hundreds of troops flew to a base near the scene of recent clashes with Marxist rebels. Army officials say more than 100 soldiers and rebels are believed to have died in the fighting. Rebels say they killed 80 soldiers. The rebels are calling for a boycott of Sunday's congressional elections.
Close to 100 United States business executives have spent the day in Cuba, a country normally off limits to American citizens. But as CNN's Susan Candiati reports from Havana, they are part of a growing lobby that wants an end to the U.S. embargo on Cuba.
A plane load of U.S. business executives flew to Havana for a 12-hour visit without spending a dollar. Right now, it's against U.S. law for Americans to invest in Cuba. But they'd like to spend money, big money, if the U.S. lifts its decades-old trade embargo.
Let's face it, for 37, 38 years we've followed a policy and it hasn't had many results. Let's try something new.
A who's who of top U.S. companies made the trip via Mexico, including officials from Texaco, Upjohn Pharmaceuticals, and Caterpillar. Major corporations anxious to get a foothold in Cuba when the time comes. Given the potential for construction and mining alone, Caterpillar calls the Cuban market enormous.
Our hope is that the U.S. will start pursuing a policy of engagement toward Cuba rather than one that's based on isolation and containment.
What is needed is the lifting of the embargo altogether.
Top-level Cuban officials hosted the visit, a one-day trip. In this case, preaching to the choir the government's view that U.S. policy towards Cuba needs an overhaul. Cuba's argument, look at France with its tourism investments, Canada building hotels, Spain and the Netherlands banking.
The Europeans aren't going to stop, and neither are the Asian tigers.
On the heels of the Pope's visit, Cuban officials are hopeful proposed U.S. legislation to ease restrictions on the sale of food and medicine will get support in Congress.
They can, through their own eyes, see what they've had, go back to the United States and say it. I think it's a step forward.
Among those here in Havana, Craig Fuller, who is now lobbying Capitol Hill to ease trade restrictions. You may remember him as President Bush's chief of staff. Fuller says back then, this kind of trip would have been unlikely.
We didn't agree with all the leaders we met with, but we found ways to build a relationship. And I think that that's something I learned from George Bush.
In the words of one Cuban official, the train toward lifting the U.S. embargo is rolling. The question is whether it has enough steam to force a change in U.S. policy. Susan Candiotti, CNN, Havana.
A war of words has erupted between Russia and the former Soviet Republic of Latvia. As CNN's Steve Harrigan reports from Moscow, many Russians are angry about how Latvia is treating its ethnic Russian minority.
The trouble began when more than 1,000 pensioners, most of them ethnic Russians, gathered in the Latvian capital Riga Tuesday. The pensioners were angered by price hikes for rent and utilities. Unable to clear the main street, Latvian police beat several demonstrators with rubber batons. While no serious injuries were reported, the event has damaged the already shaky relations between the former Soviet Republic and its giant neighbor, Russia.
An entire nation is being humiliated, millions of people, and it's happening in the very center of Europe.
Latvian government officials dismiss Russia's criticisms. The police defend their actions.
There were a lot of aggressive people in the crowd.
Nationalist politicians in Moscow seized on the incident as another example of discrimination against ethnic Russians in the former Soviet republics. Angry members of the Russian parliament denounced the Latvians as fascists. About 600,000 ethnic Russians live in Latvia, a third of the country's total population. But since gaining independence in 1991, Latvia introduced strict citizenship laws, leaving most Russians stateless. Yulia Zaitseva is an ethnic Russian who has lived in Latvia 35 years.
I can't own land because they say I'm not a citizen of Latvia.
Television footage of the clash has been repeated daily in Russia, stoking the anger between the two sides. Another sign of anger, a Kremlin spokesman says a planned visit to Latvia by Russian President Boris Yeltsin is now in jeopardy. Steve Harrigan, CNN, Moscow.
Long live Rome, and on to victory!
There are times when you can't afford to miss a message. That's why Skyward Plus stores your messages when you go out of range and automatically delivers them when you get back.
Brutus!
Because everybody knows missing a message can have serious consequences. So get SkyTel and get the message guaranteed.
Discover timeless styling that goes beyond fashion. Discover superior quality and attention to detail that's backed by more than mere words. Discover the finest cruiser that delivers an extraordinary experience unmatched by any other. Discover yourself on a Royal Star by Yamaha.
It is a place where power isn't flaunted, but instead quietly asserted. Because sometimes a whisper can say all the right things. Park Avenue by Buick, the power of understatement.
Mio papà lavora per l'International Paper Italia.
Francesca's father's customized box designs have greatly reduced produce spoilage during shipping.
Mio papà fa delle scatole forti, che ci mettiamo dentro di tutto. L'insalata, i pomodori. A me i pomodori proprio non mi piacciono per niente. Per fortuna che ci sono le scatole di papà e le mando tutti via.
International Paper, answering growers' needs and yours.
Sir, is this your computer? Yeah. It's unusually thin, sir. Please open it. Is this large area the screen, sir? Yeah. Sir, the screen is abnormally large and unusually bright. I know. Not the usual computer now, is it, sir? No, it's not. Supervisor to Station 12.
It's a showstopper. The High-Note Ultra 2000 with Intel Pentium processor with MMX technology from Digital.
For now, cyberspace is a tax-free zone, but lawmakers here in the United States are haggling over how long that'll last. Some states are demanding a piece of the profits. Now, Rick Lockridge has more on the debate.
It doesn't mention sales tax at all. Not that I see.
Right now, when you buy something over the internet, as college student John Eikenberry is doing here, you almost never pay sales tax. That's because the Supreme Court has ruled that out-of-state sellers don't have to collect the tax from you. It's a big loophole in the law, and many Americans, including our Mr. Eikenberry, have learned how to exploit it.
It's more something that I assume that I'm not paying sales tax. It would have to, if it got added on, I'd be like, yeah, what's going on?
Now, U.S. governors are trying to close the loophole and preserve their right to levy state taxes. They say it's only fair.
You can't have one rate if you order it over the telephone, another rate on the internet, and another rate if you buy it in the store. You can't have a fair tax system under those grounds.
But the governor's plan is under attack on Capitol Hill, where no one wants to be labeled pro-tax. A bill called the Internet Tax Freedom Act is cruising through Congress and has already won over the White House.
Because it takes into account the rights of consumers, the needs of businesses, and the overall effect of taxation on the development of Internet commerce.
The Internet Tax Freedom Act would block any new Internet taxes for 6 years, such as taxes on monthly Internet access fees. Proponents say the Internet is a golden goose that needs time to grow before the taxman comes looking for eggs.
Right now, over 30,000 taxing jurisdictions in America could, if they wish to do so, take their own little nick out of the World Wide Web. It's as if 30,000 hands were reaching into your pocket at once to imagine the worst.
But Ray Shapak says this golden goose is already strong enough to stand on its own two webbed feet.
Well, this to me does not look like what I would call an infant industry. It's growing very, very rapidly, and by merely collecting sales taxes over the internet is not going to choke it in any way.
As you might expect, anti-tax groups have joined the fight against new internet taxes with great gusto.
The states don't need another big dose of free money. Otherwise, they might have the same arteriosclerosis that affects the feds.
While the more than 50 co-sponsors of the Internet Tax Freedom Act hope to carry the day here, others quietly recognize that one day the Internet will be just another way to buy things. And then, as now, taxes will be one of life's two inevitabilities. Rick Lockridge for CNN, Washington.
Leading Edge is brought to you by MCI. One team, one company, one local to global connection.
Paging Bob Morello. Friends and colleagues, oh Bob. Tired of hearing Bob Morello constantly paged over this system? Then you'll love how our new MCI one-number technology locates even the elusive Mr. Morello. Behold, as I dial Bob's 800 number, witness the call bounce from Bob's office to his home and now to his cell phone. Hello? I give you MCI's one-number technology. Who is this?
Tonight on CNN. It all begins at 7 Eastern when Moneyline with Lou Dobbs talks to Steve Hanke, economic advisor to the president of Indonesia. Then in the crossfire, the White House scandal tests loyalty. Is there a reward for betraying the president? At 8, it's The World Today. Next, it's Larry King Live. Tonight, Larry and a team of political experts discuss the ongoing White House investigation. And then at 10, the latest national and international news on The World Today. That's all tonight on CNN.
Sunday, meet the people who shaped our world and played a role in the biggest stories of the century. Time turned 75. A special impact Sunday.
In an emergency, seconds feel like hours. Bad things can happen to good people. Good thing we're so close. Very close. Emergency services, where you are.
You never know what the future will bring. That's why your nationwide insurance agent offers life insurance plans to provide for your family, pay off your home, or put the kids through college, no matter what. So call today and have someone on your side for life.
Nationwide is on your side.
In Goodlettsville, call Nationwide Agent Ramey Phillips, and in Nashville, call Nationwide Agent John Thetford.
Early Edition with Donna Kelly and Leon Harris, 7 Eastern weekdays on CNN.
The soldier, be he friend or foe, is charged with the protection of the weak and the unarmed.
He was there when American soldiers massacred the weak and the unarmed, and he put a stop to it.
This is WorldView with CNN's Bernard Shaw and Judy Woodruff in Washington.
Thank you for joining us.
Also ahead on WorldView, a man named Johnny Chung raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the Democratic National Committee. And now CNN has learned he is ready to tell authorities some of that money came from China.
And the only survivor of the crash that killed Princess Diana talks again to investigators. His lawyer says Trevor Reese-Jones is remembering more. Here in the United States, Hugh Thompson says he didn't know anything was wrong that day 30 years ago until he saw a fellow soldier and a wounded Vietnamese girl. The soldier nudged the girl with his foot. Then he killed her. What happened next is a story of heroism in the midst of barbarity. And it happened in a village many Americans no longer remember. CNN's Bruce Morton reports.
This is Me Live. On a March morning in 1968, Charlie Company, Task Force Barker, Americal Division attacked. They found unarmed civilians and killed them, 504 of them, the plaque says. America learned of the massacre much later. Many saw these photographs by Army photographer Ron Haverly. Old men, women, children, babies murdered on a path, in a ditch. The Army court-martialed Lieutenant William Calley, whose platoon did the killing. He was found guilty of 22 deaths. Richard Nixon freed him after 3 years house arrest, less than 2 months per dead Vietnamese. There was some honor that March day. Helicopter pilot Hugh Thompson saw what was happening, landed, told his door gunner to aim at Calley, and saved some children, 10 at least. The Army gave him a medal, but the citation said he landed between American and Viet Cong troops. There were no Viet Cong troops, just civilians and Americans with guns. Finally, the Army put that right. They gave Thompson, door gunner Lawrence Colburn, and crew chief Glenn Andreatta, who died in the war, the Soldier's Medal, which you get for risking your life, but not against an enemy. Against, in this case, U.S. soldiers. Clemson professor David Egan led the campaign to bring the truth to light.
When America does wrong, particularly, at least it's evident to me today, it's not a secret.
For Thompson and Colburn, this was a kind of closure.
And I'd like to quote General Douglas MacArthur. The soldier, be he friend or foe, is charged with the protection of the weak and the unarmed. It's his very existence for being.
I'd like to thank all of them who served their country with honor. In a very real sense, this medal is for you. Thank you, and God bless you. Again, to my fellow veterans, welcome home.
Most did serve with honor. Most have come home. And in My Lai, the dead rest, 30 years after. Bruce Morton, CNN, Washington.
In Central Europe, Serb forces appear to be pressing ahead with efforts to crack down on ethnic Albanians in Kosovo. For a second day, heavily armed Serb police swept through villages in the Yugoslav province. Serb police claim they destroyed a terrorist base, but ethnic Albanians tell a different story. They claim that Serbs set fire to homes, randomly shot at people, and forced hundreds to flee. At least 50 people were reportedly killed on Thursday. The U.S. government is condemning Serb actions, and while no plans for military intervention are being considered right now, CNN military affairs correspondent Jamie McIntyre reports the Pentagon is ruling nothing out.
Alarmed that Serbia's forceful crackdown on Albanian separatists in Kosovo could ignite a Balkan war, the United States is issuing veiled threats of possible military intervention.
There will be serious consequences if this situation persists.
In December 1992, in the waning days of his administration, President George Bush issued a stern warning to Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic that in the event of conflict in Kosovo caused by Serbian action, the U.S. would be prepared to use military force against Serbia. Officially, U.S. policy hasn't changed.
The United States has a number of options available. I'm not going to speculate at this point of which options we might pursue.
The most drastic option would be U.S.-led airstrikes to punish Serbia, for which contingency plans were drawn up in 1992. But others advocate military action short of attack.
We need to have a no-fly zone by NATO over Kosovo because the Serbian forces are using helicopter gunships. We need to get a NATO-led observation force similar to the preventive deployment force that has prevented conflict successfully in Macedonia.
The U.S. fears if violence gets out of control in Kosovo, it could spread to neighboring Albania, Montenegro, and Macedonia. That could draw Greece into the fighting, which could increase tensions with NATO ally Turkey. Besides the 8,500 U.S. troops in nearby Bosnia, the U.S. has some 350 troops in neighboring Macedonia, part of a small international observer force. And a U.S. amphibious assault ship WASP with a contingent of 2,000 Marines is scheduled to arrive in the Mediterranean mid-month. But for now, the focus is on diplomacy, specifically the threat of tougher sanctions against Serbia if it violates human rights while dealing with armed insurgents. And next week, after a meeting of key allies in London, the U.S. will dispatch a top diplomat to meet with Serbia's president to make sure he doesn't underestimate U.S. resolve. Jamie McIntyre, CNN, The Pentagon.
In Newton, Connecticut, 5 people are dead after a disgruntled worker went on a shooting rampage at the state lottery headquarters. Here's a report from CNN's Brian Jenkins.
Authorities are still trying to figure out why a Friday morning that started so peacefully at Connecticut Lottery headquarters in Newington turned so deadly. Matthew Beck, a lottery accountant in his early 30s, walked into the executive offices with a semi-automatic pistol, confronted Michael Logan, his former supervisor, and shot him dead. Then he shot and killed Vice President Frederick Rubelman and Chief Financial Officer Linda Milnarczyk, Beck's current supervisor, and the former mayor of New Britain, Connecticut. This employee says everyone else ran at the sound of gunfire.
Panic, fear, just let me out of here. Let's get out of here as fast as we can. Just a very scary, very dangerous situation.
Beck chased lottery president Otto Brown to a parking lot. This woman said Brown was about 200 feet ahead of her.
Mr. Brown was looking towards where I was, and I'm assuming that he saw the person with the gun. And he ran forward, and I'm saying that Mr. Brown is a hero in my eyes because he probably saved a lot of people's lives. So.
And lost his own. Beck shot Brown just as the police arrived.
My understanding is when the 2 Newington detectives pulled up, they saw the gunman put the gun to his head and pull the trigger.
Beck was pronounced dead at a hospital an hour later. He had filed a grievance last August claiming he deserved back pay for the extra data processing work he'd been given. He was reassigned in October and went on medical leave for job-related stress. He returned to work just last week. A union steward spoke with him Thursday.
There was no indication of him doing any sort of thing like this. It's just tragic.
Authorities don't know yet if Beck was taking any sort of medication. As for his salary grievance, the union says Beck was 1 meeting away from winning back pay for his extra work that would have amounted to no more than a few $1,000s. Now, counselors are helping the shooting survivors deal with their trauma.
It'll hit them. It could start tonight. It could start tomorrow. For some people, it could start in a week. It usually 2 or 3 days is when it really starts to hit people.
I offer my deepest sympathies, my deepest prayers to the families of the deceased. The whole state mourns this unexplained act of violence.
The kind of act that seems so common now in the United States, but still shocks people when it happens in their quiet town. Brian Jenkins, CNN, Newington, Connecticut.
Coming up on WorldView, what lies ahead in the investigation of President Clinton and Monica Lewinsky?
Sir, is this your computer? Yeah. It's unusually thin, sir. Please open it. Is this large area the screen, sir? Yeah. Sir, the screen is abnormally large and unusually bright. I know. Not the usual computer now, is it, sir? No, it's not. Supervisor to station 12.
It's a showstopper. The High Note Ultra 2000 with Intel Pentium processor with MMX technology from Digital.
You see coffee. At Sprint, we see data. Data from the field that works to project the future and allows access to information that helps people work together to achieve results on a global scale. A rich, robust blend of data that business relies on every day. Because business runs on data, and data runs on Sprint.
This is one of a kind. This is a very sensitive environment. I'm an environmental biologist and I work for Mobil. When oil is found in a place like Newfoundland, you have to be careful because the sea, the wildlife, but also this culture is very unique, rich in traditions. It takes a lot of communication between Mobil, our partners, and the community. When the Hibernia platform was towed up, it's a great day here. I'm really proud about the homework that Mobil has done. We work very hard to make sure that we are welcome guests in this country.
Information fed by intuition creates confidence. Confidence, tempered by pragmatism, enables prudent action. Actions come together to create momentum, and momentum can lead to frenzy, which further explains the need for information. SureTrade, a comprehensive internet broker for independent investors.
Somewhere between amber and linen, there's heaven. Between heaven and earth, there's daylight. And if you follow daylight past sunrise and dawn, your eyes open to a color called morning. One of the colors between the colors created by Canon Laser Color. Its only competition is reality.
TBS Destination Sunday. Sunday on National Geographic Explorer. The world's largest land carnivores, polars and grizzlies. It's a special night of bears. On National Geographic Explorer, 7 Eastern Sunday. Only on TBS Destination Sunday.
An important development Friday in the investigation of fundraising during the 1996 United States presidential campaign. CNN Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas joins us now with the details. Pierre?
Thanks, Bernie. CNN has learned controversial Democratic fundraiser Johnny Chung is prepared to tell U.S. authorities businessmen from the People's Republic of China provided some of the money he gave to the Democratic National Committee. Chung could place investigators a step closer to determining if the Chinese government tried to influence the 1996 campaign. Chung, a Democratic fundraiser from Southern California, made some 50 trips to the White House between 1994 and 1996. In all, Chung gave more than $300,000 to the DNC. All of it was returned. This week, Chung agreed to help in exchange for a deal to plead guilty to lesser charges. Anything he says will have to be investigated. Bernie?
Thank you, Pierre Thomas, with the latest on that. One economist calls it the closest thing to worker heaven that the United States has seen in decades. The nation's unemployment rate fell last month to 4.6%, the lowest level in 24 years. President Clinton hails the news.
The American economy has now added more than 15 million new jobs since I took office. Inflation has remained low and stable. We continue to have the strongest economy in a generation, the lowest unemployment in a quarter century, the lowest inflation in 30 years, the highest home ownership in history. We're on track to have the longest peacetime recovery in the history of our country. These are good times for America.
Economists attribute the low jobless rate largely to the fact that employers created more new jobs than expected. Mr. Clinton stayed on the subject of the economy and had nothing to add about the investigation of his alleged relationship with former intern Monica Lewinsky. But a White House aide and perhaps Lewinsky herself could appear before a federal grand jury next week here in Washington. CNN's Bob Franken reports.
So, what's next? Or who's next? We're expecting that Betty Curry will once again run the media gauntlet to the grand jury room next Tuesday, and speculating that the leading character in this cast, Monica Lewinsky, might finally make her center stage appearance here at the courthouse. Maybe.
She does not wish to be before the grand jury. She does not wish to be indicted. She does not wish to be convicted, and she does not wish to be incarcerated.
Which sounds like Monica Lewinsky's attorney Bill Ginsburg and independent counsel Ken Starr have a way to go before working a deal after a day of secret haggling in front of the presiding judge. They're arguing over whether she'll get immunity before telling the grand jury about what has become a convoluted story. Did she have sex with the president or didn't she? Was she encouraged to lie under oath about it or wasn't she? The groundwork to those answers may have been laid by the main attraction of this week's show.
I did not in any way tell her, encourage her to lie.
That, in a nutshell, is what Vernon Jordan told the grand jury for 2 days. The close friend of the president also made it clear he had been assured by his chum, as well as Lewinsky, there had been no sex. But, in typical Washington insider style, he snuck in an escape clause.
And we will see what time will tell us.
The president's secretary, Curry, is expected to tell the grand jury more about Jordan's role. In his deposition, sources say, the president claimed Curry initiated Jordan's efforts to help find Lewinsky a job. But Jordan made it clear that while Curry did ask him to help, he always thought she was simply carrying out the president's wishes. In fact, Jordan says, he kept President Clinton personally informed about all he did for Lewinsky. Starr's strategy in calling back Curry and possibly Jordan may be to nail down their stories. All this in preparation for potentially conflicting versions from Monica Lewinsky and the president. Bob Franken, CNN, Washington.
President Clinton's former business partner, Susan McDougal, was temporarily freed from prison this week. A judge released McDougal for a few days so she could undergo tests for breast cancer. She has been behind bars for 18 months for refusing to cooperate with independent counsel Ken Starr's investigation of Mr. Clinton's role in the failed Whitewater real estate venture. McDougal, her former husband James McDougal, and the Clintons were partners in the Arkansas deal. Ahead on WorldView, the investigation of the crash that killed Princess Diana. The survivor is summoned to Paris.
Saturday on CNN Style with Elsa Clench. This spring, what you see isn't always what you get. See how Antwerp designer Anne de Meulemeester takes surreal art to the runway. Saturday, 10:30 Eastern on CNN.
I'm watching you, CNN.
Miss Stars Movie Channel's free preview this weekend, March 6th through the 8th.
Today, there are more heartburn medicines than ever before. How do you choose? Simple. Choose the one that pharmacists recommend most, Pepcid AC. Today, they recommend Pepcid AC 2-to-1 over Zantac 75. In fact, they recommend it more than Zantac 75, Maalox, and Tums combined. But don't take my word for it. Ask your pharmacist which one's right for you. You can be heartburn-free with Pepcid AC.
What a party. I'll never forget it.
We started investing in no-load mutual funds with T. Rowe Price right after Randall's first big promotion. People thought we were crazy investing by ourselves. Few people did it back then.
Well, we wanted to enjoy our retirement.
Work with kids.
Hang out in the backyard.
All 40 zillion acres of it.
For over 50 years, we've been helping people invest with confidence. T. Rowe Price.
Sir, is this your computer? Yeah. It's unusually thin, sir. Please open it. Is this large area the screen, sir? Yeah. Sir, the screen is abnormally large and unusually bright. I know. Not the usual computer now, is it, sir? No, it's not. Supervisor to station 12.
It's a showstopper. The High-Note Ultra 2000 with Intel Pentium processor with MMX technology from Digital.
You see coffee. At Sprint, we see data. Data from the field that works to project the future and allows access to information that helps people work together to achieve results on a global scale. A rich, robust blend of data that business relies on every day. Because business runs on data, and data runs on Sprint.
As America's full-service discount brokerage firm, Oldie opens you up to the advantages of timely investment opportunities. Opportunities enhanced by our personal service, professional advice, and research. Investment services to help you with your goals. So now's the time to stop and change the way you think about investing. Call Oldie, America's full-service discount broker.
To France now, where the only survivor of the crash that killed Princess Diana was summoned to Paris Friday to speak with French investigators. CNN's Jim Bitterman reports.
Once again, the British bodyguard traveled to the Central Court building in Paris to contribute his latest recollections about the crash which killed Princess Diana. And once again, Trevor Rees-Jones' memory of the accident proved frustratingly incomplete. While his exact testimony during this fourth hearing before the investigating judge remains secret, Rees-Jones told a London newspaper last week that he now remembers Diana calling out to boyfriend Dodi Fayed after the crash, and that he also recalls 2 cars following the princess's limousine away from the Ritz Hotel on the night of the accident. Driver Henri Paul, Rees-Jones has said, did not appear under the influence of alcohol or drugs, as later blood tests proved he was. The 29-year-old bodyguard made no comments after testifying for more than an hour. Perhaps because of last week's newspaper interview, his lawyer stressed any new recollection his client may have will become part of the official record first.
Mr. Rees-Jones is beginning to remember some things. He hopes to remember more. He is going to tell it the judge first and only whenever he remembers it.
Judicial sources reported that the investigating judge was not happy about the Rees-Jones newspaper interview, and the judge is also reportedly unhappy that Dodi Fayed's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, has been insisting publicly that there was a plot to kill his son and Princess Diana. Al-Fayed will have a chance to discuss his conspiracy theories face-to-face with a judge when he comes here next week to present his own testimony in the investigation. Jim Bitterman, CNN, Paris.
If you live or work in a city or suburb, you probably know the stress of trying to find a parking space. As CNN's Jeff Flock reports, with more and more cars on the road, the problem is not getting better.
New York, LA, and Chicago install fancy new meters.
I've circled the block so many times that I just go home.
San Francisco puts out a whole book on how to do it downtown.
You either drive around or you spend the extra time walking.
The internet advertises space-age solutions.
It's just such a problem. I just don't want to deal with it.
Don't want to deal with parking.
So what you've got is a fixed resource, the parking supply, which is currently being consumed totally, and more people want to use it.
The federal government's latest survey says since 1969, the average household has almost doubled the number of cars it has. What's a country to do with all those cars and seemingly fewer places to put them? Well, the 3 biggest U.S. cities are putting in so-called pay and display meters in compact places. You pay, get a receipt, and then display it in your window.
One pay and display box would replace approximately 12 meters.
Parking Pal, the guide to where to park downtown, started in San Francisco. Other big city versions are coming soon. In Chicago, it's so bad the mayor put together a task force.
We came up with 48 recommendations to find equitable solutions to the parking problems in the city.
Among them, shrink the size of metered spaces, though it may leave sports utility vehicles wanting, and the old standby, encourage public transit. The government's National Personal Transportation Survey finds 86% of people's trips are by car. Number 2 is walking. Public transit, third place, less than 2% of trips. Attempting to find their own solutions, one Chicago shopkeeper in the parking-poor Lincoln Park neighborhood started a shop-at-home program where they take their store on the road.
One of our staff members gets into a car, my car, and drives to their home and brings the merchandise.
It works great if only they can find a place to park. I'm Jeff Flock, CNN in Chicago.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Bell Atlantic, your guide through the wiles of communications.
Sunday on The Next Impact. Week in and week out, it chronicled the events of our time. Its cover, a pictorial history of the famous and the infamous.
You can get on the cover of Time for doing good or for doing bad.
Meet the people who shaped our world, who were center stage in some of the biggest stories of our century.
It comes from the belief that people are the driving force of history.
Time turns 75. A special impact. Sunday, 10 Eastern on CNN.
Tonight, Bill and Pat shake things up in Washington. Crossfire. Tonight, 7:30 Eastern on CNN.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the field the new for 98 Sport Package for the Nissan Pathfinder XE. Check out those alloy wheels and bigger tires, step rails, roof rack, halogen fog lights, and more. Plus, the Pathfinder XE with Sport Package beats the Toyota 4Runner SR5 with a price that's over $1,400 less. And right now, you can add this luxurious Nissan Pathfinder XE with the Sport Package to your home team at this low lease, but only for a limited time and only at your local Nissan store.
You have dreams.
At last, your money's about to have every possible financial option open to it.
You want to succeed.
From the security and easy access of traditional banking services,
you hope to retire early,
to a personalized financial plan built around annuities, stocks, bonds, and name brand mutual funds like Fidelity, Kemper, Ameristar, and Van Kampen American Capital.
You want to enjoy life.
Introducing tailored investment plans from First American. A banking relationship, a brokerage relationship, and a professionally tailored approach as to how to use them both to fit your life, to meet your goals.
You need someone to show you the way, someone you know.
For details, call 1-800-824-3741 or visit any First American branch. Tailored investment plans from First American. About life, about you.
Where is that pest control guy?
Sorry, hon, I waited last month. My bad, ready to go.
If you're still using monthly pest control, call the experts at Sears Home Central.
Hi.
Our 7-step DuraGuard system was designed with you in mind, with no monthly visits or baseboard sprays. Sears uses long-lasting odorless baits in out-of-the-way places to get the bugs where they hide, so you can go on with your life. Of course, if you need us, we'll come back at your convenience. So for your free home inspection, call the pest control experts at Sears Home Central today.
Lanny Davis on Larry King Live tonight. I'm Lou Dobbs in New York, and coming right up on Moneyline, the third technology giant in as many days has just issued a warning to Wall Street. Compaq Computer saying its earnings will not meet expectations. Compaq's alarm followed a blockbuster rally for stocks. The Nasdaq today scored its second biggest gain ever. The Dow posted a triple-digit increase. And as the crisis darkens in Indonesia, I'll be talking with President Suharto's special counselor, Steve Hanke. We'll be talking about currency boards and the prospects for an IMF rescue. All of that and a lot more coming right up on Moneyline. Please join us. Now back to Bernard Shaw with WorldView. Bernie?
Thank you, Lou. A new film about the Titanic may not have the Hollywood pedigree, but it is what National Geographic is calling the real deal. This 14-minute film opened Friday at the National Geographic here in Washington. It takes viewers on a three-dimensional tour of the Titanic's wreckage. The photographer spent more than 50 hours to collect the images. The Titanic sank in 1912, claiming more than 1,500 lives on its maiden voyage. That's our worldview. For Judy Woodruff, I'm Bernard Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us.
This is CNN.
Live from the world's financial capital, New York City, this is Moneyline with Lou Dobbs.
Good evening. Tremendous volatility rocking the stock market. The Nasdaq Composite Index followed up yesterday's third biggest loss today with its second biggest gain ever. And the Dow posted a triple-digit run-up after yesterday's more than 90-point decline. Bad news, they say, comes in threes. Compaq Computer late today became the third major high-tech company